Hey, what's going on, everyone? Dominic the Primetime Treasure Hunter here. Welcome back to another video in which we are going to do another store review. This is something that I have done in the past for folks who are members of my Facebook group, the Facebook Reselling Resource Center. The link's down below in the description section, by the way. If you would like to join, almost 17,000 members strong. I have previously sent out some messages to people in the group and said, listen, if you're struggling with slow sales, because this is something that comes up pretty much every day, people having slow sales, let me know, send me a message. And if you feel like you are following through with best practice techniques, then as long as you give me permission to show your store here on the channel and do a critique and use your first name, I'll do a store review for you for free. Won't cost you a penny. And so I have had several people who have reached out and I have done those store reviews. You could look under my playlist section and click on the store review section and you could see those prior videos. Now, you're going to notice over time that there are similar themes that start to cut across these videos, but every situation, every store is unique. And so, there's different things to kind of show and highlight with each one of these. So I'm going to jump into the message that I received from a member of the group, which is Heather. And you could see what Heather wrote. Now, Heather is a longtime member of the group, and she also is a very strong supporter of this channel. She watches a lot of the videos, comments. So thank you very much, Heather. And what you wrote in here was my sales, and I'm just going to fill in. I like to put exactly what people wrote. I don't like to change it at all because I just like to show exactly what was said. But I'll fill in a couple words here. It says, my sales are slow because either I'm too high priced or priced too low. I tried to change pictures up a bit and be diverse in what I sell. Critiques on anything, I think you meant to say, would be great. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to provide a critique. I've mentioned this before. When I'm providing a critique, my job here is to be honest, to try to help you out. I'm not going to help you out if I'm just telling you things that are going to make you feel happy. I've got to tell you things that, sometimes it could be a little bit hard to hear, but I do say them with the intention of being helpful. Nothing here is meant to be mean. Nothing here is meant to be disparaging in any way. I am really here to try to help improve your sales. And so, and also, by the way, help others, because if you're watching this and you're not Heather, these things might apply to your store. I get that comment a lot from people who write in after these videos and say, wow, now I realize a lot of the things that I have to do to change things up to my own store. So let's go into Heather's store. Here it is right here. It's called Two Crazy Cat Ladies. And I'm going to start off, as I do every one of these videos, with doing a little discussion on branding. Even though this may not be the main reason why sales are slow, and as you could tell from the title of the video, the main issue that I think is causing a problem in Heather's store has to do with photos. And I'm going to do a deeper dive into that a little bit later on. We're going to go over some specific items, and I'll show you some things regarding photos. But I do want to also have a discussion on branding, because I think branding is very important. It's important to building a strong following, getting repeat customers. It's also very important for first impressions. And if you make a good first impression on anyone in life, no matter what it is you're doing, that's going to increase the chance that you're going to have positive interactions with that person. And in this instance, we're referring to positive business interactions, which would mean sales. So a couple things that I want to talk about here about Heather's branding, because I do think that it is at least something you should consider, Heather. I'm not saying do it instantly right now. Don't make a reflexive decision, but mull on it a little bit. It has to do with the store name and some of the branding that's going on here. You have your face here, so you've personalized it, and you have you with a cat. And I don't think that's necessarily bad to show your picture or anything like that. But we'll talk about how maybe the cats need to go, and I'll explain to you why I say that in a moment. But first, let me just say here with the capitalization, I'm big on that, making sure that's consistent. The crazy and the cat, those are capitalized, but the L in ladies isn't. And that really should be two crazy cat ladies. If that's what you're going to stick with, then the professional way to do that is to make sure that's capitalized. And store, you probably would want to do that as well, because you do have it capitalized up here. However, the issue here, and if you're watching this, you're probably squinting a little bit because it's hard to tell what that says. I mean, you could kind of figure it out because you know what this says, so you kind of figure that's what that says, but it's very light and it's small. You want your branding to be bold, you want it to be big, you want it to be easily recognizable. You don't want there to be any mistake from the buyer in terms of where they're at. And so just as a comparison, I've shown this in my other videos, but this is my own store. You could see there, right there, Primetime Treasure centered right in the middle. It's big, it's bold, it's right in your face. There's no question at all where you are. And then we've got a big banner that cuts across the screen with examples of items that I'm showing. So there's a logic to why that is happening there. And here, we have a smaller banner of, what's good is with Crazy Cat Lady is you have cats, and so you have a cat theme in there. But I'm left wondering, why is there a cat theme to this? Well, I would assume that you like cats. Although, even though you have personalized some of your message down here, there's nothing that's said about cats. So I have no idea why it says that. Do you sell stuff related to cats? Well, it doesn't say that. It says a bunch of things you sell: dolls, ceramics, books, glassware, DVDs, and stamps. But again, nothing about pets, animals, anything like that. And by the way, keep your capitalization again consistent here. No need for ... It's just wasting space. Just put commas between each one of these, and I would try to keep things to one line as much as possible. But I'm left with just a bunch of questions, like why is it called that? What is the reason for that? And it says two Crazy Cat Ladies, but I don't see two ladies here. I see one lady. And then you have to think about, now I know there's probably a lot of cat lovers watching this, and I have a dog, Daisy, and I actually do like cats. I had a pet cat named Taffy when I was a kid, and so I have nothing against cats. But you have to keep in mind that if you're going to name your store after cats, and specifically if you're going to refer to it as Crazy Cat Ladies, people have stereotypes in their mind about people who call themselves that, who call themselves a crazy cat lady, and people tend to use that in a negative way. And so you have to assume that there's going to be a percentage of buyers that are going to come into the store when they see that, and they might start to have kind of a little bit of an uneasy feel when they come in. Now, don't get me wrong, there's going to be plenty of people where that doesn't even come into mind, but you want to try to minimize that as much as possible. Some things people could get concerned about when they hear two crazy cat ladies, or even if it was just Crazy Cat Lady, they could think about, when I order something, is there going to be cat fur all over it? I'm allergic to cats. So one of the things you would want to make sure you put in your listing is that your items they're kept separately away from cats. There's no cat fur. For someone who is allergic to cats, for example, I have a family member who is really, really badly allergic to cats, would probably not order from here unless they had some, strong assurances that there is not going to be an issue related to that. Now, sometimes also when people think of Crazy Cat Lady, they think of people who are hoarding. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that's anything that Heather does. I'm just saying these are stereotypes people have in their heads. And so they might think that maybe where the items are being kept, maybe it's not clean, something like that, all these types of things. And then you have the word crazy. That's not necessarily bad in and of itself, because there's plenty of examples of things that have the word crazy in it that sell. There's crazy glue. If you remember, if you're from the old days in the Northeast, Crazy Yetis. That could work in and of itself. That word isn't something that you necessarily have to get rid of, but I think you have to start thinking a little more about, is that really the branding that you want to use? And once again, as I've mentioned before, whatever it is that you want to go with for your company name, you want to try to have your username match up with that, because here we have what looks like a personal name. You want to try to take your business away from being what's going to be perceived as a hobby into something that looks like it's professional. People in general, customers, are going to be more likely to buy from somebody who they think is running more of a professional operation, even though they might know it's someone who's doing it on an individual basis, but it looks professional compared to someone who does kind of look like they're doing it as a hobby. So make sure that that theme is coming across consistently. If you want it to look professional, make sure everything's being lined up that way, and that's going to include photographs, which we're going to get into soon. A couple things from the description that I would say beyond what I mentioned already is that I would take away this right here. Reselling is my passion. I don't think that's needed, and I think that could turn off some buyers. Now, I have said in the past that you should not at all be ashamed about being a reseller, and I still stick to that. So when I go sourcing, I don't mind if someone asks me what it is that I'm doing. If I'm reselling, I'm out front with that. I let people know that. But in terms of customers, this is different with customers. With customers who are coming to your store, there's going to be, again, a percentage of buyers who are not going to want to buy something from someone if they think that it's being, just something that the person purchased to resell. Some people don't mind purchasing something from somebody who, it's something they had laying around their house that they weren't using. But if they think it was purchased to resell, there are some people that have kind of, negative attitudes about that. I'm not saying that's right, but what I'm saying, if you're out front with that right there in your description, that this is a reselling page, that could turn some people off. So I would advise taking that out. And this other personal stuff here, people could go back and forth with that in terms of whether they would want to keep that in, keep that out. It says it's not a hobby to me. It's a way of life. I've been selling 19 years now at flea market and just started eBay. One thing I would definitely take out of that is and just started eBay. Again, you want people to be confident with you when they come into your store. You want people to think this is somebody who has some experience, who knows what they're doing, who is confident about what their procedures are. You don't want people getting the sense that this is someone who's just completely brand new. Now, of course, if you are just starting out, you don't even have any feedbacks, or maybe you have a few feedbacks, that's going to be obvious based on the feedback number. But what I'm just saying is, don't just come out to somebody and say that, because that could lead to some concerns there. You do have some categories that are fleshed out here to the side on the left, which is good. Although, again, I've said this in other videos, and I don't think I've yet come across someone in which I've done one of these store reviews who did categories that had them alphabetized. Have them alphabetized, because that will make it much easier for people to find things. Now, on a positive note, so it doesn't feel like I'm just being critical in a bad way the entire time, you could see Heather does have 100% feedback, so that is very good. That will give people some confidence. And you could also see Heather does have a lot of items listed, so she has good selection. The issue is trying to get that selection moving and to make sure that the items that she has up are items that could actually sell, that they're things that people would actually want to have. Now, with 630 items, I would say that there really should be some more categories here fleshed out. So you could see here plush, salt and pepper shakers, Beanie Babies, books, DVDs, vintage, antiques, collectibles. Now I'm going to just click on collectibles and see if there's any subcategories in there, because you can do that. You can do subcategories, and we don't have that. So that would be an idea if you did want to kind of keep it a little shorter on the left and to have some subcategories under collectibles, or for example under vintage. That's just so broad. Vintage, you could cover so many things under that, but again, you could see there we have no subcategories. Same thing with antiques. You would expect that there would be some subcategories under that, but we don't. In fact, we only have one thing listed there. So I would try to be more specific in terms of the categories, because like if you look here over at my store, you could see here down to the left, look at all of those different categories that you see there, and they're alphabetized. It's going to make it much easier for people to find things. So let me go over here, and now let's take a deeper dive into some of the specific items. So let's see. Let me try to get back to the first page here. Here we are. So let's take a look at this one. These are just some things that just came up first that I took a look at as the first things that I looked at in the store. So we have this item here. It's the Christmas Carols pamphlet songs. So here you go. Here's the Christmas Carols pamphlet songs. Now, for those of you who've watched my prior videos, you probably know what it is that I'm going to say, right? What's the issue here with the photo? The issue with the photo is that it is cut off. It's cut off, and that makes it more challenging to see when we're going through thumbnails because it's shrinking it. You want it to try to cover up as much of the box as possible. And so think about that. Think of again a buyer's experience when they're going through items on their phone, or even when they're going through it on the desktop and they're scrolling down. The smaller you have it, the less that it's the less easy it is to identify what the item is, the decreased chance that you're going to have of getting that person to click on it and make the sale. And as I go into some of the other things here, some of the other photos, you could see here, again, we have parts of it cut off. Yeah, I could see the words here. That's good. But again, I don't know. Is there a rip on the bottom of this page or not? I don't know. Is there a stain here that's being hidden? Because remember, there's people here that are buying things, for collectible purposes, and they want to be able to see the entire thing. They want every single thing in frame. So that's very, very important to do. Not everyone is going to stop and pause and type an email out to you to ask you, because they're going to figure you're not going to want to do it. You might not want to, send all new pictures, and they'll just move on and try to find somebody else who has that item. Another thing, and this is going to come across more in other videos, please, please, please get distracting items out of your backgrounds. It takes away from the professionalism that you're trying to achieve with your photo. So that's important. Now, someone might say, well, that's a minor thing. It's some scissors in the background, but still, you don't want anything to distract the viewer away from your item. Let me show you an example. I'll show you something from my store here. This is a magazine that I have here, and as you can see here, I have the magazine perfectly centered with a little bit of border around it. Now, you have the option with some of these things. You could use a white border. Sometimes people use a dark border, and sometimes people use a wood grain border. I sometimes like to use wood grain borders. It really just depends on the item in terms of how you want to do that. But you can see here the key here for the key point is that there's nothing missing there in terms of a corner, in terms of an edge. Everything is in frame, and that's also true when I want to show inner contents like this here. So God, I love this picture. But anyway, yeah, I might just keep this magazine now that I'm thinking about it. No, but anyway, everything you can see here, everything, the point is everything is in frame. There's nothing that's missing. There's the back of the magazine, there's the side, but there's some inner parts right there. You can see everything there is right in frame. There's nothing there at all. So you could see there to the bottom, at the bottom left, there is a little chipping of the edge, and that's something that the person could see now. They know that's not being hidden at all. So that is very, very important. Make sure you're keeping things in frame. Let's go to another item here, and again, we have a similar issue in which we have a very, very narrow picture for what it is that's being displayed. And you could see that over here. If this whole thing, I'm moving my cursor around the entire possible space of the box, and you could see the majority of the box is not even being taken up by what the pictured item is, and that is a problem. Now, this is a new Snoopy watch. It's not an expensive one, and now I'm going to say something that might surprise a few people, but just you got to hear me out on this. Now, normally, for most things that are new in package, you want to keep it that way, especially if it's a collectible, if it's some kind of, a cool toy, if it's a designer watch that's brand new, you would want to keep it in original packaging, stuff like that. But if it's something like this, that it's a cheaper item and it's coming just in a clear plastic bag and there's no branding involved with it that is going to make it worth more money, then take this out of the plastic bag and still just say it's new. You just took it out of the bag to do the photos, because that plastic is going to interfere with your ability to take the photos. I mean, technically, if you still want to keep the plastic around it, you still should do something different with the photos in terms of centering over that dial better, so people could get a better picture of the Snoopy that they're seeing there. Because right now all they have is 2 pictures, and this one here in the back, that I have a feeling, and Heather could write in the comments to correct me if I'm wrong or not, but I have a feeling that that red that's showing up and that yellowish kind of orangey tint, that's probably distortion from the light hitting the plastic that would likely either go away or be reduced significantly depending on the lighting angle that you took with this, if you got rid of the plastic and were just taking the shot on the metal on the back. But let me show you an example of, and I just did a search for Snoopy watches, and I'm searching for like the highest, like top of the end Snoopy watches. But this is something I suggest that you do, by the way, if you want to get good examples of how to photograph items, especially if you're new. Just do a search, go to the advanced tab, and which is right over here, by the way. If you're totally brand new, click on the advanced tab and type in something and search for completed, sold, and especially for the sold ones, because those are the ones that sold, so you know that people spent money on them, provided that there wasn't something technically wrong that happened, like some kind of cancellation or something like that, or someone didn't pay. But you'll get a general sense from looking at them how people photograph them, and those are strategies you could use and then you could apply to your item. So if we look at the Snoopy watches, for example, what is it that you notice as a common theme? Forget for a second that these sold for $28,000 or $6,000 or several $1,000s. Forget that for a second. Just take a look at themes of these photos and look at the ones that didn't sell and look at the ones that did sell. And what you could see is that a lot of these use white backgrounds, and for the first picture especially, what the majority of them are doing is they are front facing the dial right there, so it's really big and right there in your face and you see it really clearly. I'm going to just expand a little bit, as you could see here. Look at that. I mean, that is just a nice professional look. And then if we go through to the other ones, you could see here the person is presenting things at different angles. I do the exact same thing, get different angles so the person could really get a sense. Remember, I told you that the buyer is not there to physically handle the piece, so try to put these pieces in positions and at angles that they would likely want to explore it. Imagine you're the buyer. What would you want to see before you felt confident to make a purchase? So instead of just doing a front and a back, get some other angles on your item. And I do tell people, for more expensive items, you definitely want to, for the most part, want to take more photos if that's something you could do, different angles. For things that are more on the cheaper end, like the $10, $12 pieces, sometimes you don't want to take necessarily that many, but I would take more than 2. I would try to get at least a few more different angles, and again, really get that center shot focused right like that, so you could really highlight the item better and take up more of the page. So there's another item here, and I'm just going back to remind everyone, I'm focusing here on these 3 pictures that showed up right up at the top, is that what Heather is trying to do here is she's trying to use a white background on some of our items. Now, again, we have some of the item that is cut off here, as you can see. I mean, not much, but there's a little bit of it cut off. But what I see here that gives me some concern is that we don't have a clean white background. We see that there's an attempt at making it. You could see what Heather's using here looks like a lighting, a light box, they call it. And so, you put your item in there and you're supposed to be able to focus in on it. It looks like a pretty small light box. And so we're getting some things that I think are distracting to as opposed to like here where we just have a nice clear solid white background. And as we scroll through Heather's items here, in her store, you will see that this is something that happens on other items as well. You could see back there we've got the line coming down here, and not every item is she trying the white background, but on some of them, like this one here, it's okay. But there's a bunch of other ones where we're having these like creases showing up in the background from the light box. You could see down here there's one right over there. I try to eliminate all that stuff. That stuff is pretty easily eliminated with eBay's white background tool. You could also use a program like PhotoFuse, and there's a couple other ones that people recommend and could put down in the chat. But I would try to eliminate that type of stuff, get rid of it. Let's look at a couple of other pictures here, and I'm going to actually zoom in on this. And here's another issue. You've got to take the time. I mentioned this in a prior video. You've got to take the time to clean your items. That's something that could be cleaned out. Now, you can see that there's some dust there on the bottom. All you've got to do is take a paper towel, for example, roll it up around a toothpick, wet the paper towel, and then you could just get in those little creases and crevices right there and clean that stuff right out. It would make it look much more presentable. Some of those spots on the lamp may be able to come off as well. Now it's good here. You could see Heather's doing what I suggested with the watch, is that she is taking different pictures, different angles. So she is doing that here. So good job, Heather, for doing that. You can see here we've got an aerial view of it. But here on the bottom, and I mentioned this in the prior video when I went over neutron bombs, is that this tape that's here on the bottom, you got to peel this tape off. You got to take the time to do that. Just peel that stuff off. That stuff should come right off. And if there's a little sticky residue on the bottom, you could use a little bit of olive oil to rub it off. Some people use peanut butter, but then you got to make sure you get the residue off that. For anyone with any allergies, you got to make sure you wipe that down with soap and water. Make sure there's no traces left behind of anything like that. But whenever you do clean this, I would flip this around so that the person can see the company that made this. Don't make the buyer do the work. Yeah, the buyer could download the picture and flip it around, but why make them do that? Make everything as easy as possible for the buyer. I'm going to go into another item here, which a good thing that Heather is doing here is she is showing with this fire truck that it does extend out. So I have recommended that before. So good job, Heather, in doing that, because you could see over here she is showing that it compresses downward. So that's good. But I would try to get this thing off of the table and try to get a white background on that. In addition, what you want to try to do is, if you are going to use a wood background, try to get it on a wood grain that's pretty consistent, and try to make sure it's clean, because you could see here we've got like some residue that's on the table, and we've got like a little white spot up there. All of that is things people are going to start to get concerned about. They're going to worry, is my item going to be clean? Is there something maybe on there in terms of some stain that I'm missing? Maybe will it get stained after these photos were taken? Things like that. Make sure that you are centering your item. Here again, we have parts of the toy that's clipped off on the bottom outside of the photo border edges. I would want this nice and centered, really easy to see, easy to look at. So centering your items, not letting the borders cut anything off, is really, really important. Over here, these are some clown dolls, and again, what I talk about with distracting backgrounds, this is something that these could be right behind a nice white background. Get some pieces of oak tag, or get like a big section, a big area where you have some big white piece of paper, like oversized paper behind you. Make a little area that's just designed for photography, because right here we have like a random person in the background, and then like over in the next photo over here, I think it is, where is it? There's another one where, well, let me find it. Yeah, here we go. We've got like a bottle of Coca-Cola right behind the person. Like, this is stuff you don't want to be in the picture. Again, there are buyers that are going to get frustrated about this. Is there a buyer that's out there that's just going to ignore it, not pay attention to it, and purchase it? Sure. But the point is, is that these are the types of things that make sales go slower. If you want them to go faster, make sure you've got the photos nice and crisp. If you don't believe me, just go over here, do a search for the Potter clowns and search from highest to lowest, and you will see a big difference in terms of the photos that are making sales. And you could see these are photos that are using nice white backgrounds. It's clear, it's easy. There's nothing distracting at all in the background. If there is any kind of crease on the bottom, it's relatively subtle right down there. That's okay. I just don't really like those big lines that kind of cut across into the item and stuff. More of a problem. And you know, if you want to look here down at another, if we just keep going down the page, you can see here again we have all these that are in green font for the price. These are all things that sold. But as I go down a little bit more, let's click on this picture, because you could see this one did not sell. Repeated attempts to sell this one didn't sell. And why didn't it sell? I'll tell you why it most likely did not sell. Because if I was a buyer and I saw this and it was displayed with this background behind it, I don't know who listed this. I have no idea at all. But look at this. It's like, you know, it just, even though it's really mostly what it is just chipped off paint, it creates the appearance of dirt. That's what it looks like. It looks dirty. And then you've got the doll pressing against it. This is not what you want to have if you want to create a professional appearance for your items. There's no reason to just not go out to the dollar store and instead of using this white painted chipped off wood, to just get two clean pieces of oak tag and just display those right on top of one another, and you got a nice clear white background that you could touch up with all these different white background devices. Last item that I'm going to go over here, and again, it's just an example of strategy of photography wise, and this is the first picture in the listing. In fact, let me go down and maybe I could show it to you where it is. I know it's down here. Here it is. So you can see this is the first picture that the person sees. Now, this is it's advertised as Matchbox car made in England, Mercury. So I have talked a lot about photos, but I'm going to talk about two other things, Heather, that you're going to have to go through with your items, and you're going to have to make sure you're using the proper keywords and that you're pricing things properly. Because what is the big thing that is missing from this? What is this? What kind of car is it? It's a police car. How do we know it's a police car? Well, let's just look at this second picture. This should be the first picture. Now, this picture should be changed because this really should be centered right into the middle here. But you want this side view to be what people are going to see when they go through the thumbnail. If I'm just going through the thumbnails and I just see this thing right here, I'm just going to think this is some plain boring car, and I'm not going to want to click on it at all. So you're going to want to make sure that you do that. In fact, if you go and you look, because this is the company, it's a Lesney Matchbox police car, so that's what I typed in, and you look at from the highest to lowest, look at what you see. Every single one of these people are side viewing their car, or they're side viewing it at an angle, which is fine too. I use that strategy as well to do the side view angle. I think it's a good idea. And look, these are all things that sold. Now, Heather, your car is not going to sell for that much money because it doesn't have the box and it's in far worse condition. In fact, I couldn't even find a comp for this car in the United States in this condition. There are condition issues with it. There is some chipping off of the paint off of here, and that's going to cause some problems because, you know, collectors of cars, of Matchbox cars, you know, they're just like comic book collectors. They want things to be in, you know, as best condition as possible. And so I could tell you that $20 for this single Matchbox car is you know, it is a little bit. It's a little bit high, I think. I would lower the price on that one. And so you got to check your comps, check your pricing. If you want to know more about checking comps, go back to my prior store review that I did with Neutron Bomb. But really, the focus on this one, Heather, I think really comes down to doing a little bit of thinking in terms of how you want to do the branding for your store. People did not know this, that you can actually change your username. You could do that every 30 days, as long as the username you want isn't something obviously that's being used by somebody else. So try to think about that. Think about whether or not you want to do a rebranding. remember, that's not necessarily really a bad thing, because people do this all the time. Businesses are always changing names for that specific reason, because they realize, you know what, I want to try to change things up. I want to switch things up. I want to have a broader appeal to my customers. I want to make it more clear what it is that I'm selling and how my branding actually ties into that and relates to it. So keep that in mind. And again, Heather, the photographs are going to be huge. I really, really, truly believe that if you improve the photographs and you have a consistency to your photographs, that's going to help you. People want to see a consistency as they're scrolling through the store. And right now, as you can see, I don't see a consistency with how things are listed. My mind, my brain is not getting, my eyes are not getting that streamlined view that I would like to have of the items. You want to have a consistent photography technique that you're using throughout the store, depending on what the item is. Again, doesn't mean that everything has to have a white background. And by the way, Heather, good example here of something that I think you did a good job with. This is actually very good. Look at this. You centered this pretty well. You've got a pretty good job here on the white background there. That's good. That's a good job on that one. So what you did here, Heather, I would try to apply this. I mean, there's a little bit of something on the edge here. It looks like there's some shadowing that got in there, but that's not the end of the world. But that is a good example of a good photo that you did. So I would just try to get rid of some of that shadowing. If you could brush that out with something like Photo Fuse, just to make it as crisp as possible. But I really, really think, Heather, if you work on improving your photos, that you will see an improvement in sales, as long as you are also making sure that you're also having things priced properly. And be very careful as well that you are not underpricing things, and that the items that you are selling are things that are worth the time to actually list. Do you really want to spend the time and effort to put up a postcard that you're just going to sell for $5? Most people are not going to want to do that. It just takes up too much time relative to what you're making out of it once you subtract the fees and the shipping. So that's another thing I would look at, because those types of items that you're putting up for just a couple bucks, those are low demand, high supply items. That's what they generally are. They could be high demand, high supply items as well, that could sell for pretty cheaply. But usually what they are usually low demand, high supply items. And so those are, the more of those types of things that you have in your store, like a modern day postcard like that, you're gonna have slow sales. So you want to try to go through, trim some of that stuff out of the store, and maybe, if you had like a bunch of postcards like that, just kind of lot them together and do like a postcard lot or something, so you could add value rather than that thing kind of sitting around there for a while. But that's it for today. I will do more store review videos in the future, and we'll continue to try to get to everyone who previously contacted me. So thank you for your patience on that. I'm trying to space them out because I don't want every video to be a store review video. It'll get too repetitive and it will get boring. Please do not send me another store to review, because I do have to get through the backlog that currently exists. And once I've done that, if it seems to be something that's still of need for people, I will let you know about that, and throw out a mention of that, most likely in the Facebook group. So if you're not a member of that, you need to join. It's free. Down below is the link in the description section, as well as to my Instagram account. That's @prime_time_treasure. I'll see you all back in the next video, everyone. Take care.